Estamos rompiendo, no estamos rompiendo, muchachos. Y si el pueblo pide,
Reggaeton, reggaeton. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the episode you've been waiting for. Today, we're going to talk about the evolution of reggaeton and the different ways that we as Latinos identify with this genre. So, I grew up in the East Coast. The Caribbean influence is very important for me. And my friend Romero here, he grew up in Mexico and in the West Coast, right? So he has a very different understanding view of reggaeton.
From this one, I'm more of a spectator. You connect with reggaeton on a whole different level than I do. So I am really interested in exploring that.
Yeah, and I think my interest is because the journey of reggaeton in some ways represents my personal journey. It represents the shared journey of a lot of people from, well, as immigrants from Latin America. And it also sort of at the same time, because of that, it represents the evolution of our people, of the Latino culture, of this sense of like we're all together and we're powerful and we don't have to apologize for who we are because we are unapologetically Cardi B, Bad Bunny, J Baldwin, Daddy Yankee, Nicky Jam, all those artists. So I think that's why this genre and the fact that in this song you have a Colombian, that's kind of the amazing thing, full circle moment for me because you have a Colombian singing reggaeton who's making reggaeton even more famous, right? So it's pretty cool to see.
This
So
is J
that's
J
from
Balvin, right? Is
yeah,
that
that's
the?
J Baldwin, and again, he's somebody who's very popular, who rose to the top of the game fairly quickly, but he's been working at it for so long, right? He started in Medellin, and maybe he doesn't have the same style, fast style, pretty voice as some of the artists, but he just works, and he also comes up with great hooks and great songs, right? So all of his songs are unique. Actually, I'm gonna try to take you to the beginning as much as possible. So I think this is part of the sort of the connection, right? What I wanted to share with you and the viewers. So the roots of reggaeton are actually Spanish reggae, and the interesting thing is obviously um, as when we were colonized by the Spanish, by the French, by the British, the Caribbean became this meshing pot, this true melting pot of cultures. And so you have reggae, you have music from Spain, you have music from Africa, and all comes together, and all these amazing sounds come out of it in reggae, right? So reggae is kind of like the one of those rhythms that people who are familiar with the Caribbean can jam to, who can appreciate. So somebody took one of the first people to take sort of the reggae and turn it into reggae en español was Gabi, and he's from
Now,
Panama.
what year are we talking about here? How far back does this go?
Pull up the video. I know you had looked up his video. I want to
Yeah,
say
actually, I
probably
have it here.
90s, early 90s. It
So
was
this is
definitely early 90s.
by then it's already becoming a little mainstream, right? Like with this video, or is this? Are you saying that this song right here is like one of the main ones that catapulted it?
Yeah, so it was one of the first ones that catapulted it. And like so many genres of music, so whether you're talking about tango, bachata, cumbia, vallenato, some of the quote unquote music of the lower class eventually becomes what's trendy and what actually represents that culture. So here, not only do you have reggae, but you also have more of the highlighting of the Afro-Caribbean, Afro descendants. So that's one of the other reasons that this music is controversial because it's seen as the music of the poor people, and the most poor people in Latin America happen to be people of color, mostly black. So there's a lot of like these and obviously one of the reasons they dress like that is because they have to mishmash with clothes, and they try to get things that are either name brand or are used, or just they just find a creative way. When you have to be innovative in your wardrobe, as you need to be innovative with your music as well.
We had this joke, like we always knew who was Central American, like from Honduras or maybe Nicaragua, because of how they dress, because they used to dress just like this.
So I mean, those are colors from the Caribbean. So they go from the Caribbean to Central America to Puerto Rico. Then they come to the U.S. to New York, Puerto Rico, Rhode Island, and that's how people try to dress that way, but they do it in an American way.
So if I would have seen somebody from, say, Puerto Rico or the Dominican Republic living in New York around the time that this song came out, maybe like a year afterwards, would they have been dressing like certain people would have been dressing this way?
Yeah, some people would have been dressing that way, and then you also have the people who are dressing in hip hop. So that's how you can tell what who has been here a little longer and who just arrived. So if you look like you just came from the motherland, from the island, or from Colombia, and in the case of Colombian, it was if you're wearing like tight pants, tight everything, very proper, tucked in, you just gone to the U.S. But if you had been here for a while, you were Colombian American, you were wearing baggy, and you were more like hip hop, right? Because that was kind of like what was cool at that time. So you either dress hip hop or you dress, rock and roll. Those were some of the styles that you had to pick, and within that, then it's like, okay, are you recently arrived, or you just or you've been here for a while? And
Yeah.
then who's playing now is El General, who by far is the most. So he's recognized as the grandfather of reggaeton.
So what year is this song from?
So this is 90, 93, 94.
Living here in LA, being from a Mexican community, and also I'm a in 1990 we had just come to the US, so I still came from a culture like in Mexico where this type of music we didn't really hear it in the small towns. Maybe even if you heard it in Mexico in the cities, you didn't really hear it in the small towns as much unless people came from the US and then brought that music with them. That's how we would hear it. So
Exactly.
so we saw these like an American would think of La Macarena, that it's like, okay, it's catchy, it's here for a while, but then it's kind of disappear. We weren't
Yeah.
thinking of reggaeton as like this huge movement that was sweeping across South America, Central America, and even Puerto Rico.
This is going to be good because the transition now is to Puerto Rico. So Puerto Rico, those are talented people. The musical tradition is amazing, right? So it's an island of about 4 million people. And when you think of all the salsa, merengue, reggae, and music, and now reggaeton. So they took what we were just hearing and they blended a little bit more with hip hop, and they did, and they really started adding some hip hop elements. Some reggaetoneros originally wanted to be hip hop artists. They
That's
wanted
how they
to be
started
able
out.
to, yeah, they wanted to be able to sort of relate it to that culture, but they just happened to be able to also jam to this.
So I just pulled a map here of Puerto Rico, I guess, in relation to the U.S. for those people that don't know where it is. But so something like all of these artists that you're mentioning from Puerto Rico, um, give me a sense for when did they start? Like in what years were they starting? Like when they were still like in the underground scene, and
Hmm.
were you getting access to this music like almost immediately, like within the same year, or was it a few years delay?
Yeah, so it was there was a bit of a delay. So it was 1994, and that's the year I came from Colombia to the United States. And it was around that time that my other Colombian friend, a really good friend from Cali, he told me, "Hey, this is some music that I got from my uncle. This is some the music that they hear in Puerto Rico." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool." So he at that point it was Playero was one of the famous DJs, DJ Ceja, and at that time, much like it was the case in hip hop, it was the DJ because they put the equipment, they put the beats. It was the DJ who was supposed, it was the main artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the MCs, the singers, were just kind of like as for show. And then there's people like Daddy Yankee who started in that way, and now obviously he's one of the great artists of reggaeton, Wisin y Yandel. Let's not forget about my queen, La Potra, La Caballota, Ivy Queen.
But Tego
Uh,
Calderon predates because my little brother got into Tego Calderon. I think even to
yeah.
today he considers him one of the best. And I have another buddy too that I think that's the guy that introduced my brother to Tego. But Tego is doing this a few years early '90s, whereas some of these other ones that you mentioned, at least like when I started hearing of them, that was like late '90s, early 2000s. But maybe that's when they became mainstream. Maybe they were already in the scene like in the early '90s too.
Yeah, so that's so Intego has been in the game for a while too. And yeah, at that point there was an influx of Puerto Ricans. You also have Dominicans coming in, so you had that influence. And what was happening is that reggaeton was now it was getting on CDs and people were getting famous. And Tego Calderon um, actually was also special about him. He's one of the first afro-descendientes.
Hmm.
So, and I'll play some songs where Tego Calderon you can party to, right? The Tego Calderon song, como para, he can play songs that are just like have a good time, don't think about anything, and then but he also has these songs that make you think, that talk about poverty, that talk about being African, Afro descendant and poor. So he could run the gamut. So that was one of the things about Tego Calderon that makes him one of the great artists in the genre.
With Tego Calderon, what you're mentioning is, I think it sounds pretty significant to me because you're talking about the message of that he wanted to put out there in terms of his background about like a social struggle, very similar to hip hop. And in one sense, you can see how that could resonate across a wide range of people, including yourself. But then there's
Mm.
also like the dance element to reggaeton that you can jam, you can dance to it. But I wanted to ask you about how you feel now about all of these artists that are gravitating more towards just the pop aspect of it. It's just club music. The message has been so watered down that you find not even a relic of a socially conscious message in the music anymore. Like, is Cardi B, is she really singing about any significant social struggle, like women's struggle or anything else?
So yeah, so someone like Tego Calderon, he's talking about his experience, and this is one's just like, let's have a good time, right? So this is not even just commenting on the lifestyle and the experience. So that's what Cardi B is doing too, but in a different way, right? She's doing it with trap music, and also with a little bit of reggaeton. So that's why the collaboration between her, Bad Bunny, and J Balvin. So J Balvin represents kind of like the little bit of the old school reggaeton, but more pop. Bad Bunny is the new, sort of the Spanish trap music, and then Cardi B she represents the youth and the future of English trap,
Hmm.
who happens to also be able to speak Spanish and has done some songs with Osuna and things like that. Actually, very Caribbean and some of my favorite songs. So that's one of the reasons I said that this was probably going to be a multi episode conversation, because there's just
Right.
so much music. So that's why that's like the evolution. That's like Cardi B, Bad Bunny, and J Balvin is like reggaeton made it to the mainstream. That's what we wanted. But obviously, there's people who want to be purist and who wanted to go to like old school hip hop, old school reggaeton, Bikosi, Tego, and so many artists who were talking about the shit that was happening in the streets. And that's where also you have Residente from Calle 13, who
Yeah.
was also about that type of rapper. He's like the next version of Tego. He's Tego 3.0.
To me, that was the first time that I really paid attention to reggaeton because I didn't grow up with tego, and to me it was always dance music. That's what I saw it as. I didn't see
Mhm.
it as having any significant deep message. But when I heard Calle 13, I think he was the first guy that to me was able to really use his talent as a lyricist and as a composer.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure if it's him or because it's two guys in the band in Calle 13. I'm not really sure who's writing the songs, but I'm assuming it's a lead
it's
singer.
him. Yeah, and most of
Uh,
it is him. His brother is more of the
yeah,
musical guy.
yeah,
Well, he got a lot of his inspiration from someone like Tego. So let me
yeah.
play. This is a recording of Tego combining. Look, just listen to this.
Gobierno, acaben de una vez de jugar dos bases. Si vamos a hablar de caco, tú me diste clase, ¿con qué moral? Ahora no quieren culpar. Si los más que no critican son parte del mal. Y yo no digo que no hay espacio para mejorar. No me descargue concentración, mi crimen es musical, estoy legal. Y se me trata como criminal, como si bregara con el escamón. Si no Pedro Coral, no tienen de mango bajito. Porque somos negativos para los chamaquitos. Pero y Fajardo, que se llevó hasta los esquimalitos, mano dura.
Woo! So he's talking about political, the criminalization of reggaeton, of reggae artists, of poor people, and how rich people criticize them, and then you have politicians who are stealing money. Notice how they go back from hip hop
Yeah, I was
to
gonna say
reggaeton.
it has a bit of a hip hop sound, but then he it switched. And then I was like, okay, that's the reggaeton beat.
And then he also and reggaeton and Tego Calderon what has he's like just what he just said. No, yo no creo en títulos ni plata. So he represents like, hey, I'm poor, but whatever, I'm happy, and I don't need money to be happy. Whereas now is more of a flaunting of money, right? And it
Hmm.
happens with Cardi B, with Bad Bunny. It's like, hey, we have money. Now you have different problems, but most of their songs are about the lifestyle. Like, we're just going to the club and spending on one night what you make in a week, right? Which is kind of just this unapologetic. I don't give a f because I'm doing good and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it's very similar to hip hop, really.
Yeah,
So
it's
going back to his influence, so you're saying Calle 13 would say that Tego Calderon is a big influence for them. I'm sure other artists are gonna would say that as well. Who would have been Tego's influence? So what was his environment like? What was he growing up around where he decided to start doing this? Was it El General from Panama, or was it other artists?
well because he's in Puerto Rico. It's actually bomba plena y salsa.
Uh huh.
So the among the richest music of Puerto Rico, but he was also listening to a little bit of hip hop. There was also Biko C, who is a little older than um, than Tego Calderon, and he was one of the first ones that made it seem like he was able to do that mix of making it commercial and danceable and still keep the lyrics. So he was one of the artists that was there. But at that time, a lot of the music was about what they saw. So it was about crime. It was about having a good time, the club, getting drunk, finding women, all those
Hmm.
things. So, like, it represents um, what they were experiencing.
What do you think certain countries find a deeper connection with reggaeton than others do? So, for example, so let's talk about these countries that I have here on the map, right? So there's Dominican Republic, Haiti, Cuba, and then you move over and then you get Central American countries. You have Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. And I think this is really fascinating to me because, again, I travel to Mexico once, twice a year because I still have family over there. And
Mhm.
I went to Honduras, was it last year? And I was shocked at how much they feel reggaeton. Who was it? Asuna that there was a concert and we ended up going to that concert and just everyone
Yeah.
there they felt it the same way that I see that you connect with reggaeton. But that was like if I go to Mexico, you don't at least the part of Mexico which is Durango. I don't see maybe it's different in other states in Mexico, but it definitely felt different when I was in Honduras.
Yeah, and I think it's and part of it's also because they say that the music that you grew up with, you develop a really personal attachment to. And I think that's why, because it just reminds you of your youth as a soundtrack of a lot of new experiences and perspective, and it's also sort of they help you process things, right? So it's both about where you're from and where you want to get, and and that's what a lot of the songs portray, right? It's like this is what I'm living in. This is how hard it is. This is how many people try to kill me, how many people I killed, how much weed I had to sell, how many all these things I had to do. And then, oh wow, now I'm making it and it's great. I'm having a great life. And then it's like, oh wow, like I'm having to deal with all these issues, right? I'm losing my family, I'm partying too much, my health is getting bad, and then oh, I made it, I have all this money, I learned so much, and now so it's sort of almost like you are growing with
And
the music, and they can capture that.
you're saying that at the time reggaeton was the only music that really people could identify with their own personal experience.
So it's feeling that guy because the reason I'm playing this song is a combination of this is Tego Calderón y Victor Manuel Cheche Cole, and they do a remix of this famous not Ruben, Hector Lavoe song. So it's at that time salsa, like I was saying, to go back to your question about what music influenced Tego was salsa and plena, this type of music.
Mm-hmm.
But like he just also felt like there were stories that you could not tell through salsa that you could tell through hip hop, and then that you can also tell through reggaeton.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, not to say that there's there's plenty of such socially conscious salsa like Ruben Blades and Willie Colon, and I think actually those type of artists influence Tego and other people because they talk about real issues, but they introduce it in a soft way where people can party, have a good time, and if they can capture the lyrics, they think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they maybe learn about a different perspective or something that they weren't thinking. So that's the interesting thing, right? And it's also the music that you grew up with because my mom and all of these kids' moms, they grew up with salsa and merengue and those rhythms around.
There's been a lot of music that has been exported from Latino America. There's cumbia from Colombia, but even vallenato, and then there's salsa from Cuba. And Mexico has embraced that music. Like, obviously, there's rock en español, some hip hop, but there's mainly norteñas and corridos and all that music, and it's just about people just putting out their sorrows and then being sad and expressing themselves. I'm wondering if the fact that that music is still so ingrained, maybe that in itself is why something like reggaeton doesn't come along and take over.
So definitely Central America has always been about reggaeton. Colombia, but the neat thing about Colombia now is that there's a lot of people who grew up with reggaeton, who liked it, who are now taking it and doing a mix of it. So that's Jay Baldwin, right? He's doing reggaeton, but he makes it a little bit more poppy and um, more congestible for people outside of Latin America. So
Mm-hmm.
that's his claim to fame, that he's been able to be successful and he's been able to do a crossover but still in Spanish. Is who he is, and obviously he changes a little bit, but he speaks in Spanish. All the songs that he does in Spanish. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't try to do speak in English like other artists had to do in the past in order to be successful. And he's had so many songs to do that. But to your point is, yeah, I mean, there's and when another place has a strong musical tradition, it's harder for us a music to make his way through because you already have, you have your bachata, you have your cumbia, your vallenato, your old salsa that you really get used to it, and and what you hear now is very different. But still, and that's the crazy thing. Now, reggaeton has become one of those. Uh, if you're Latino, you know reggaeton and you
Mm-hmm.
like it for the most part. Yeah, there may be some artists that you don't particularly like, but there's definitely a connection between reggaeton and being Latino in the United States and also globally, right? Because in some ways it connects us with people in Latin America, people in Europe, people across the world who connect through the genre.
But I do still think though that even within the Latino community, you're gonna find a lot of people that are just not with it really.
Yeah.
I have two cousins in Durango. They live in the city, so my experience when I go to Mexico is I go to a small town because that's where I'm from. But I also do spend some time in the city, and I have some cousins from the city, and they're the type of guys that they'll put messages on Facebook like making fun of reggaeton.
Yeah.
Now they'll go to a club and they'll probably dance it if the music comes on, but they don't. I don't think they listen to it just to enjoy it, and let alone they don't feel it at the same way that like someone like you does. And I think when it comes to a country like Mexico, a lot of people, I think rock and roll really swept over Mexico. So you have the whole rock en español movement, and
Mhm.
then a lot of Mexicans, they I don't know if it's the relationship between the US and Mexico, where the Mexicans want to feel close to American culture. So a lot of them ended up adopting not necessarily hip hop, but like Led Zeppelin from the 70s, and then that type of rock.
Yeah, same thing in Colombia.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
people like
And
reggaeton
what you
a
would
lot.
probably find is that the guys that gravitated towards that type of music are not reggaeton fans,
No,
right? And
because they're
and
the polar opposite, right?
yeah,
They're
exactly. And so my cousins are like Led Zeppelin fans. They like the rock en español. They like Joy Division, which is music that I like too. But I also enjoy reggaeton, but they don't, and they'll listen also to Mexican music like some banda, some corrido. But even that type of music, they try to shun it a little bit. They're more like, yeah, my music is that type of rock music, and so yeah, these are the guys that don't necessarily find a connection to reggaeton.
yeah. Well, it's interesting because there's even now reggaeton. There's this song that is by Rake and Osuna, and we seen and Rake is one of the popular like Mexican bands, rock like soft music, soft rock fans, and they've been able to work with reggaeton. So that now they incorporated reggaeton into their repertoire and collaborated with. This is with Osuna and Wisin, but they also collaborated with Nicky Jam, and they collaborated with Maluma. So it's and now so people in Mexico are a little more open, receptive to the language to reggaeton because this is a diluted version of reggaeton that you get into consume.
You do hear songs like this on the radio, because when I go there, when I'm driving around, and if I'm flipping through the stations, you'll find stations that will be playing reggaeton.
Yes, sir.
I've heard this song before. I didn't know that it was Rake. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of them. I know of them.
Yeah, we can do a whole. Probably one of our next episodes should be on rock en español because there's definitely some rock en español that I know you and I have connected to. But from Rake, what's it? Levemente, that song that gets to my soul, man, gets to my soul.
Who sings the song? Rake?
Yeah, Rake, you haven't heard it?
Probably. I don't know. I'm good with melodies. Like if I listen to a song, I can tell you if I've heard it before, even if I just heard it once. But I may not know the name.
And
Yeah. So I have a question. Did have a question, because for me, you're all into reggaeton, and so I'm curious. I'm curious to know if, from your point of view, is there any reggaeton that makes you cringe, that you would consider crap, or to you everything is gravy and the more the better?
yeah, I mean, there's some artists that that don't necessarily. I think the mumble, the trap music. Like I first was not too enthusiastic about Bad Bunny, but I think after I listened to him and some of the music that he made, like I appreciate it. Right? He's more than he has a creative philosophy that he's trying to share. I think there's some other songs that are more, they're still pretty grimy, right? So that's the thing. Like even within my musical taste, I think I still like something that either is very pure or very good, but it's also that's not too grimy, not too because there's still underground music, right? So music is still being elaborated, and sometimes I like when it's just been to the next level, right? It's been a little bit refined, the message better, the
Hmm.
lyrics are better.
So
Um,
I'm going to see if I can challenge. If I may challenge you a bit right now. So
okay.
let's see if we go down this. Okay. So is it possible that, because you feel really proud of the fact that reggaeton is becoming a worldwide phenomenon, that we're spreading Latino culture, and in a sense we're telling our stories in some way, and you feel a connection to that, right? To what extent do you think that is affecting your objectivity when you are trying to be critical of the music itself? Does that make?
Well, it impacts it, and part of it impacts it because I'm not living that experience, and that's not how I grew up, right? So I think what the what the new music represents is the sort of the vibes and the values of the new generation.
Uh
So
huh.
it's their experience, it's their story, it's their point of view, it's their approach, which is great. Which I see a lot of myself in that, and there's some songs within that that I enjoy and that I like. But there's other things that are. It's not that I'm judging it. It's just that I don't feel the same connection because I didn't live it or didn't connect to it. So, for instance, I love that "This Is America" song because it's like the music, the message, the
Mm-hmm.
lyric, and I know that politically is savvy. But then there's other songs within that genre that I don't care for. That similar to what you said about how you feel about reggaeton, that it just sounds the same. That's when I hear some of those songs, like, oh, who is this? Like, this
Mm-hmm.
kind of sounds like another song that I heard, but I'm not interested enough or curious enough to find out who it is. So when you hear "This Is America" song, it's like, oh, who is
Yeah.
this?
No.
Like, this is
Yeah.
awesome.
The Childish Gambino. That's a yeah. That, I think I would put that song on a different level than some of like Cardi B's songs that are just about club in the club, because I think that song has a really deep social message to it. The reason why I was asking you about someone like especially Cardi B, because wasn't Cardi B hailed as that she made something amazing because she's being she's the first Latina artist that she's been breaking down some barriers and reaching some milestones maybe that other female Latinas haven't reached, especially in the American market. So I think I heard some discussion about that a few
Yeah,
years ago, right? And I think my cousin is a huge, like old school underground hip hop fan, and even he was all on Cardi B, and he was really excited about it. And it kind of reminded me of something like La Santa Cecilia, right? So let me show you. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but I do want to bring up this topic. So La Santa Cecilia is it's Mexican American band based in Los Angeles, right? So they
hmm,
play a blend of cumbia, nueva boleros, and everything. And as you can see, it's a very hip band, and the female lead singer, she's amazing. And if you're from LA, oh man, this is amazing because like look, they represent me, and look at the type of music that they're doing. They're bringing cumbia and old school and all this stuff. But I've listened to their music and it's just okay. It's not like amazing music, yet people treat them here. A certain group of people treat them like it's an amazing band, and I'm
yeah,
thinking, to what extent are we being objective when we're trying to find something like we're in search for something that represents us, that will take whatever comes along and we'll say yes, finally we have something, but then we put our objectivity aside. So don't you feel like that's a little bit happening with some of like Cardi B stuff, where people are just they just want to embrace her because of what she represents, as opposed to maybe the quality of her work? Like let's pull up some Cardi B lyrics, because I've only listened to a song or two, so maybe I'm wrong, but this is like I like it. Cardi B and Bad Bunny. Yeah, baby, I like it like that. You gotta believe me when I tell you. So
yeah.
a club song.
Here it comes, Papa. I had it teed up for you.
Ooh.
But what's
Perfect
but what
timing.
makes this song was that mix of you heard that mix, right? In case you didn't know, this intro connects it directly to the salsa in the previous time where Latin music was popular in the United States, and people forget. People think Latinos just got here
Hmm.
yesterday, but we've been here uh, a lot longer.
Well,
So yeah,
we've been here before everyone else.
exactly.
The
So it's kind
indigenous
of
part of
like
us.
it's like, dude, like we've been here so so long, and so she was able to take that song and do like a remix. So this is the oh no, this is not the original. Because I do have that song, and it's pretty amazing. But to your point, it's just like I see why people say that, but at the same time, it's not everything. And part of it's also we need to think about the role of the industry, right? So the reason why somebody like Cardi B barely makes it is because she had to fight her way up. And the other piece that we should discuss, and I wanted to discuss in the previous segment, is a gender question. She's
Hmm.
a woman, so it's not easy for a woman Like it wasn't easy for Ivy Queen. I mean, she's one of the greatest reggaetoneras, and she
Hmm.
should be having the same success that Nicki Jam, Daddy Yankee are having. But
But Evie Queen didn't sexualize herself the way that some of these
she
more modern ones do.
she did to an extent, but not as much. She was still definitely more about I'm a singer, I'm an MC. Like I can
Hmm.
sing, I can throw down.
So when I think of Cardi B, I often hear comparisons to like a Nicki Minaj. I've heard those two names thrown together. My question was, and maybe you can tell me if maybe I'm off the mark, but in our attempts to embrace something that we think represents us because we're so happy that she's making it, uh, are we embracing the best possible representative of ourselves? Because if you were to give me a preference for which artist would I really want, would I want to be out there representing me, it wouldn't really be someone like a Cardi B. I prefer to have a Teo Calderon doing that old type of reggaeton with a deeper message. Because Cardi B, I associate her similar with this mumbo hip hop, this like trap music that is really mainstream pop,
But it
that is it's
is.
commercial appeal, but
It is, and
um,
she's like a Afro-Latina who's successful at it. That's the big thing. It's like being the first woman astronaut, or she's the first in her
but
genre. And I think that's, and I understand
interesting.
whether or not you agree with the lyric, with the genre, that you gotta appreciate the hustle. You gotta appreciate the lyrics. I mean, she's the best among the best in her genre.
But is that entirely true, or do you think there's elements of just corporate America pushing her
Yeah,
forward?
no, I mean it's huge. So I mean, corporate America in the music industry, and I mean we're here in LA, and I think you have some family that has some experience with it. But it's a cutthroat business, and it's also it's not necessarily about talent. It's about what connections do you have, how lucky you are you discovered by the right people, are you connecting with the right artists who can mentor you and bring you up. So yeah, it's not you're not gonna get like the best, most authentic person. But the nice thing nowadays is through YouTube and through other platforms, people put their songs on and they're really good. So that's how Bad Bunny started. He started as a YouTuber singing, and now look at him where he's at now. He's like he's
Yeah.
been able to express. He's an artist who's now got a platform to continue doing the music that he loves.
But isn't like when it comes to hip hop, something like hip hop, isn't there some element of within the industry where certain artists are considered to just have compromised their artistic integrity or their artistic ability for the sake of just selling? So they've diluted their message, they've become mainstream and pop. That thing
Yeah.
does exist, right?
Well, it
So
exists, but it goes back and forth sometimes. So, like J. Cole is an artist. Like sometimes you gotta sell the thing that's mass appeal, and then you get into the stuff that's deeper. Like your second album is where you show what you're capable
so
of.
you're
So
saying
there's a
that you're
little
saying
bit of
that
selling that you need to do.
you're saying that Cardi B's second album is going to be this amazing deep dive into social exploration and topics that are going to provoke deep conversations.
There could be. I think she just became a mom, and she's dealing with that experience of being
Oh,
a mom. And so I think her music, like that of many artists, is gonna represent where she's at with her life, just like Jay-Z and Beyonce uh, have done albums and have done songs about
yeah,
their experience. So we'll see how she decides to interpret everything that's happening to her now, right? Because
yeah.
it's hard because she's a mom, she has success, but her husband cheated on her, and I guess now they're back
So
together.
if she started talking about stuff like that and she started actually writing lyrics about that, I think I would actually be an actual fan because I think at least like one of my critiques, and you can tell me if I'm being too harsh on this. We can explore that, but I look at these lyrics and I think, okay, what is she doing unique that nobody else can do? Okay, did she make the
Who she is though.
did she compose the music that the song that I'm listening to, that remix, did she make that? Because that's pretty good, that beat. She didn't
Yeah,
make.
so it may not be her because this is probably a producer who
Right.
she worked with, but she was able to like perform it and make it her own. Um, so
So,
it's like I think I see what you're saying. Like technic vocally similar to what J Balvin is. Like he's not as good as Daddy Yankee. He's not as good as Tego. But he's does it. He gets away with it, right? They have good beats. They deliver. They're
so
disciplined. they have catchy songs, right? And yes, that's
So
I think
so
Cardi B may be in that.
so with Cardi B, I should stop trying to evaluate her as a lyrical artist or like anything like that. I should just see her as a celebrity, someone
Yeah,
that is able to put on a good performance, and then because that is unique to her. Nobody else like Cardi B would be able to take a song like this and maybe make it mainstream because of her ability to perform, her background, her history, her story of coming up from like a strip club, her all of that. That's unique to her.
yeah, and that's kind of like what, if you think about, I mean, a good singer and a good performer, that's a I mean, it's hard to be that. So I'm thinking of Juan Gabriel, right? Also
Mm.
somebody who started singing in El Noa Noa in those clubs and was able to make it out of that scene, become one of the greatest singers and performers, and he was able to like perform when you with a philharmonic, right? And he was able to take the music from the streets, the music about songs that he wrote for people who came to a drunk to get drunk in the cantina because their wife just left them, the woman that they want doesn't want them, or because they had an abortion, or because you're gay and you can come out, so you come out with this song that's kind of like, who
Yeah.
is he talking about? Is he talking about her?
But
Well, it's
his
kind of
his
confusing. So
his
it's all
music
that.
was his music was really sanitized too, though, right? Compared to something like this, like I like proving ends wrong. I do what they say I can. Spicy mami, hot tamale, right? So it's not as sanitized as something like you would have heard from Juan Gabriel. So that in
Yeah.
itself, you're saying, is also what makes part of her appeal. That that she's being herself, that she's being who she is, and whereas before this wouldn't have ever made it past a certain level in the music industry, now it does. A sign of the changing culture.
And the fact that now there's enough people who can buy this song, who relate to this culture, right? So like, so that's the thing too. Like, so that's why she represents, because it's almost like, oh, the Afro-Latino Latina experience perspective is now on the mainstream. And I don't know if you saw, but Stephen Colbert they started a petition to have her do the response to the State of the Union coming up, and they
Cardi
actually
B,
got, Cardi B. Yeah, he
Cardi B.
nominated Cardi B to do the State
But
of the
see,
Union.
but I would take issue with that though, because I would want somebody else except her. So I wouldn't want her. I would want like a graduate or somebody
But why is her perspective about what's happening in the country very different from someone who's educated though?
because she might have a perspective, but I don't think she's qualified to give like a response to a State of the Union, because how connected is she to politics? How often does she keep up with
Well,
international relations, right? Like things like that.
well, she's not. But that's the thing. Like, she's not, and I don't know. One of the reasons this came out is because she commented. She was one of the few artists who commented on the what was happening with the shutdown. So in some way, she was like, "What the hell is going on with the shutdown?"
Right,
Like,
but just because
people.
she commented doesn't mean that it's an actual good critique or a good comment.
So it's a legitimate experience, and I think she represents the anger, just like um, poor white people were angry that they weren't being heard. I mean, that's the same with poor black and brown people across the country who are not being heard. That the experience is that politics oftentimes is about this lofty things and these ideals. Oh yeah, let's do free trade, but you don't think about, okay, think about all those people who are going to lose jobs. They're in factories. How are we going to train them? How are we going
Yeah,
to train the kids to be successful in the next economy? They don't. So then that's how you struggle, and that's why you don't have as many opportunities, and that's why you have violence, and you have all this continuous vicious cycle of not being able to make it. So that's what reggaeton and that music also represents, in my opinion.
I agree with you on what the music represents. If I had my choice, I wouldn't want her to give the State of the Union response. It's like asking me, do I want Rick James or Barack Obama to give the State of the Union response? I'm going to pick Barack Obama because I know Rick James is really good at music. I mean, these guys are celebrities. Like, let's not. I don't want to worship celebrities, or I don't want to like. If she's good at performing, if she's good at music, if she's good at that type of stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should get behind her and say, yeah, she's qualified to give the State of the Union. Because if you want to give
Well,
the
I think
State of
she
the
represents how some people are feeling about it, though.
If we're gonna get her just because she represents somebody common from the street, then let's just get somebody off the street. Let's pull up to a bus stop somewhere and get somebody that is actually
But
still riding the bus
that's
to go
what
to work.
noticieros do. That's what
Yeah,
newscasts do.
but then it doesn't have to be Cardi B that gives the State of the Union response. Let's get somebody that gets on the news to that rides the bus every single day to work. That's still like struggling because she's pretty famous. She's pretty wealthy now, so her
Yeah, but now
struggles
she
are a
has a
little bit
platform.
behind her.
But she now has a platform where she can represents that perspective because she's not that far removed. You got to think like it's only been less than 5 years that she was in that same situation, struggling with the same issues. So that's one of the reasons why people who are coming from those backgrounds see her as like she's someone who made it, who's now talking about issues in a way that I understand and that I apply to me. I don't care what's going on in the Middle East. I don't care what's going on in China. I just know that I have to pay more, that I can barely stay in my apartment, that there's all these things, that people are getting shot, that there's racist in the street, that if I'm driving, walking, or doing anything, me, myself, or my son is gonna get killed. So she's representing that's people from that perspective and situation, and I think that's why her platform is so valuable. And I agree with you. I think as a society we have an issue with somehow putting celebrities in a pedestal, but the nice thing is now there's celebrities like Cardi B who are representing a more diverse experience and perspective, maybe
Yeah,
not yours, maybe
yeah.
not
Well,
mine, but
I mean,
others.
she might have a unique experience, and she might have a if she has a platform and she wants to use it to express her discontent and her solidarity with the common person. I think that's fine, but there's a minimum set of requirements I think that you would need, right, to be the official respondent to the State of the Union. I feel like we should have that clear separation. Now, if she wants to go on Univision and they want to give her airtime to talk about these things, then fine.
Yeah,
But
and I
let's
think that's
not
what it's going to end up being.
yeah, let's not push for her to give the State of the Union because then what are we doing? We're just saying that I mean, we you should have a good separation of our elected leaders and our those that we have elected that we feel comfortable with representing us versus just a celebrity that became popular in the last 2 3 years, and because she says things that sound like she is in touch with the common folk and stuff, then yeah, that's one thing, but that doesn't mean that she gets to automatically give the State of the Union response. There's a set of criteria and qualifications that I think that we would want for whoever's giving that response.
How you
Um,
feel about Stacey Abrams and Javier Becerra doing the official Democratic responses?
um,
African American woman,
and then who's the other one?
Javier Becerra, or
Yeah,
the
that's fine. I mean, this is now we're
he's
talking
really
about
good
this.
in Spanish.
Now we're talking about the same ballpark because we're talking about actual politicians that are actively pursuing a career in politics.
Yeah, it's
I think she's perfect. I think she'd be great for the response.
yeah.
Do you wanna have any parting words on it? Bring it back around because I think this is a good point to close the conversation.
Yes, I think this was just a good conversation. I appreciate the questions and the dialogue that we had. I think it's definitely not as I thought it was going to be a little bit more like step by step conversation, but I actually enjoyed this that we jumped around and tried to cover a lot of relevant and related issues as they came up. But bottom line is, long live reggaeton. The It will continue to evolve like a genre. It continues to mix with other genres, and I just think that it represents our story, or my story. Let me say, it represents my story, and that I'm glad that more people are getting to enjoy it, and also people are getting to dance and remember that it's a lot of what music is about coming together as a people, about what makes us unique and different, and at the same time what brings us together, right? Much in the same way that reggaeton brings reggae and hip hop and many other
Hmm.
cultural influences, vallenato like this one with the accordion. It sort of it represents how different components and different elements can come together and just create an awesome beat that you can get down to in the club or at the house.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for putting together all the material on this. I think there's a lot to cover. I think we can definitely devote another few episodes again to different aspects of reggaeton, different influences, how it's felt in different countries, because we didn't really get into some of the other countries also that were like, we didn't talk about the impact like in Europe. I'm sure there's like stories out there too, Middle
Yeah,
East and so forth.
socioeconomic, political elements of it.
Yeah,
It's a rich topic for sure.
sounds good, man. Well, thanks a lot for us to play. We'll leave it at that. We'll pick it up at our next episode, or at a future episode. We'll do a part 2.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right.